I can still distinctly remember the feeling of hype for Battlefield 3 and the build up to the release in October 2011. It was a genuinely exciting time for any Battlefield fan. Not only were we getting another main Battlefield game only a year or so after Bad Company 2, but it promised to be a truly next-gen experience and a true sequel to Battlefield 2. Now, if you remember in the build-up to the release of Battlefield 3, we got quite a few trailers and teasers. We of course all saw the unforgettable fault line gameplay, where the game shows off the streets of a dense urban environment, street-to-street combat, earthquakes, and all-around beautiful chaos. But we also got videos of some of the new Frostbite engine features, including the animation systems and enhanced destruction. EA and DICE were really trying to hammer home the improvements of the Frostbite engine with this game. Even Jay-Z was getting in on the action in the TV trailer. But the trailer that really blew me away though was the Caspian Border multiplayer trailer. I struggled to believe it was real gameplay at first, and I still get goosebumps watching it from the start when that Battlefield theme kicks in. Just something about that crunchy, glitchy video editing too, and the audio, they got it also right. Thankfully for us though, it wasn't just the trailers that were epic, the game was too. But why? Well, the reasons will probably differ for all of us, but this is my experience. This is why I think Battlefield 3 was great. Firstly, the visuals, it just looked amazing. This was a huge step forward for the Battlefield franchise, even over Bad Company 2. We were on a brand new version of the Frostbite engine, and this time around, it was really showing what it was capable of and flexing muscle. The lighting especially, I think, was a big jump forward. The animation system too. And I said earlier that DICE and EA made a point of showing off the brand new animation system, and you could see that in full effect all across the game. Vaulting was now in the game, as well as some really nice takedown animations, and in general the soldiers moving around the world felt realistic, and they did so in a much more believable way. It all improved the immersion of the game massively. One of the places that you really saw the game's visuals shine was the single player. In recent times, honestly, I haven't enjoyed Battlefield single-player campaigns. Of course, in BF1 and 5, they were smaller war stories, but I genuinely enjoyed Battlefield 3, and I've got some memorable moments there. There was the tank level that they showed off in one of the trailers called Thunder Run that people will often remember because of the dinosaur toy one of the tank crews is holding. That kick-started a big meme. But for me, the most iconic level of the single player was going hunting. The sequence where you not only get to take off in a jet from an aircraft carrier, but you get to dogfight some Russian bogies too. It's just the way the mission starts, the build up from inside the carrier, and you get to walk out onto the deck and inside the plane. It's done so well, and it still holds up today in my opinion. Of course, for the most part though, the single player aspect of Battlefield is not what most players will remember about that game. It's the multiplayer where all the memories are formed, and rightly so. And speaking of jets, as we were just talking about, BF3 brought them back into the multiplayer experience, much to the delight of a lot of players. Bad Company 2 didn't offer up anything beyond choppers, so this time around, we really had that true sandbox experience. Jets fighting other jets, jets fighting choppers, choppers fighting tanks, tanks trying to take out choppers, infantry trying to take out air vehicles while also doing their part on the ground and fighting other infantry too. There was just an incredible amount going on in BF3. You can take a screenshot on most of the levels at any random moment and it will look interesting. And while lots of people might say that BF4 is now their favourite game, I'm basing this on my experience with the game at the time before BF4 arrived. For me personally, I didn't always enjoy the vehicle to infantry balance in BF4, especially when it came to LAVs, but I remember BF3 being slightly more forgiving. BF3 had a sense of fun and adventure about it. It encouraged the players to experiment and figure out their own ways of taking out a vehicle or attacking an objective. What gadgets do you want to use? Is there a combination of gadgets that you can use with your team? C4 Jeeps or moments like the Renzook are simply unforgettable. So many of these awesome experiences that I think a lot of the Battlefield games after BF3 have not been able to offer. Next, maybe I've got my rose-tinted glasses on here, but one thing you can't deny was the fantastic gunplay. Sure, the M16A3 became the go-to gun on the assault class, who also got the medic bags, and you could argue that the class balance in that game wasn't really where it needed to be. But because the game went for a modern setting, they had all of the weapons that you could think of to choose from, and it gave you a lot of variety and choice. I remember the F2000 being really strong at launch, but I also loved the ACWR from the engineer class, and of course sniper rifles like the SV98. There were so many good weapons to choose from. Also the Magnum, damn, I missed the Magnum from BF3. It was so satisfying to use, lining up those one bang headshots. There's been few sidearms that have come close to the Magnum, but the BF3 version, definitely my favourite. I think we have to applaud the map design too. I know that most people would have had the same reaction when they experienced the iconic Damavand Peak base jump for the first time. Epic. I think that's a fair way of describing it. And so many multiplayer elements of BF3 felt incredible. When you actually did the base jump for the first time, it's just cool. Especially if you were playing with other people. You wait for your friends, everyone gets hyped, 3, 2, 1, you jump, you're down on the floor, attacking the next MCOMs. It was a great experience on Rush, and you felt a real sense of achievement if you could get down there, take the base, and then progress through the tunnel to the other side. And then you've got other iconic maps like Caspian Border, Grand Bazaar, Sen Crossing, completely different in their approach and style of play, but they all offered something for someone. Caspian Border was and still is a iconic, I think one of the best ever Battlefield maps. The points of interest flow beautifully, and the center focus around the tower makes for a great push and pull. It's the perfect combined arms map. Grand Bazaar and Sen Crossing, on the other hand, as a predominantly infantry player, I loved those two. Even some of the later DLC maps like in Aftermath were brilliant. Of course, not all of the maps were pure infantry. You did have armoured vehicles, and if you wanted a pure infantry experience, then you could have headed to the tunnels of Operation Metro. And love it or hate it, Metro has become somewhat of an iconic map too. When a map gets remade twice, you know it's a fan favourite. Even now though, some people aren't convinced that it's a proper Battlefield map, where others think it's the best one ever. One thing that we can all agree on though is that No Sharkanel's Team Deathmatch, one of the best ever made. That one would be hard to argue against, surely, because for me personally, I lost track of how much time I spent on that map just leveling up guns, warming up, having a good time, or just running a quick game. In terms of the destruction, I don't think it was quite at the same level of fidelity as Bad Company 2. It felt like you couldn't blow as much stuff up. But the stuff that you could blow up, it definitely looked and sounded better than ever before. And I just wanted to touch on Battlelog too. Much like Metro, Battlelog was quite polarizing within the community. In the early days, people absolutely hated it. Really, they hated the concept of it and not having an in-game menu. I think now though, when I look back at it with hindsight, it was actually okay. The functionality we had during the Battlelog days was far greater than we have currently with Battlefield 5. And perhaps that's a shortcoming of BF5, but maybe Battlelog wasn't so bad after all. Yeah, totally doesn't make sense nowadays, of course, with the way that the games industry has moved on, but we did have plenty of options there. Now, wrapping things up, one of the key things that I remember about Battlefield 3 is that still, there's been nothing else like it for me. It came out way back in 2011, and back then, the only sort of large-scale multiplayer games like this that we'd seen before really was the previous Battlefield games, 2 and 2142. Maybe PlanetSide as well. But those games, however, never did it all, with the visuals and immersion and sound and destruction, quite like Battlefield 3 did. Of course, BF3 didn't get off to the best starts. It was a rocky launch, to say the least, and it's something that perhaps you wouldn't get away with today because there is simply so much choice and so much expectation from the player base. Back then though, we carried on through some of the initial bad times because we knew that behind it all the bugs, all the glitches, was an absolutely cracking game hiding beneath. BF3 is a legendary game, and it always will be. And that's all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite things about BF3 were. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.